There is a secret path, one known only to the rarest of men. A path that leads to absolute mastery over anger, to a mind that cannot be shaken, to a soul that remains untouched by the storms of life. Most men wander through life as slaves to their emotions, flaring up at insults, losing control over trivial matters, and poisoning their own minds with rage. They live in a prison of their own making, blind to the key that could set them free. But you are not like most men. Tonight I will reveal 6 secrets. Not ordinary advice, not shallow self-help slogans, but ancient, hidden wisdom. The kind that only the strongest minds in history have discovered. These 6 secrets are not just ideas, they are weapons. If you understand them, if you truly absorb them, you will become something few men ever achieve: unshakable. Imagine a world where no insult wounds you, where no frustration controls you, where no man, no event, no force can break your inner peace. That world is not a fantasy. It is the natural state of the man who knows these 6 secrets. And once you know them, anger will never control you again. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Every like, subscribe helps us continue our mission of sharing knowledge. And leave a comment below and share your opinion on these secrets, or tell me which one resonates with you the most. Ready to unlock more wisdom? Let's get started. Secret 1: the illusion of control. Wisdom seekers, tell me, what is the source of your anger? Is it the words of another man? The betrayal of a friend? The failure of a plan you were sure would succeed? No, these are not the true sources. The real cause of your anger is something far more dangerous, something hidden deep within you. It is the illusion that you are in control. Men rage because they believe the world should obey them. They expect loyalty and are enraged by betrayal. They expect fairness and are infuriated by injustice. They expect respect and are shattered by insult. But tell me, who promised you these things? Who told you that the world would be just? Who whispered in your ear that people would always be loyal, that plans would always unfold as you imagined? No one. This belief is a lie, a fantasy that has been planted in your mind since childhood. And now, like an unshakable delusion, it rules you. The Stoics knew this truth well. Epictetus, the slave who became a philosopher, once said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." That is the foundation of wisdom. The weak man believes he controls everything. The wise man knows he controls only himself. Think of the ocean. A man who rages against the tide is a fool. He screams, he curses, he throws himself into the waves, believing that his anger will stop the sea from moving. But the ocean does not hear him. It does not care. It moves as it always has, crushing the foolish and carrying the wise. And so it is with life. Your anger changes nothing. The world will continue to be unfair. People will continue to betray, to insult, to disappoint. No amount of rage will stop this. But what you can control, what only the strongest of men learn to master, is yourself. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man of his time, ruled an empire where betrayal, war, and suffering were daily realities. Yet, in his private writings, he reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Do you understand what this means? It means that all the things that make you angry, all of them, are shadows. They are not yours to control. And the moment you let go of them, the moment you stop demanding that the universe bend to your will, something incredible happens. You become free. This is why men who seek wisdom do not waste their strength on anger. They do not exhaust themselves fighting what they cannot change. Instead, they turn their focus inward. They master their thoughts. They rule over their own emotions. And in doing so, they achieve what ordinary men can only dream of: complete and unshakable peace. So I ask you, wisdom seekers, what will you choose? Will you continue to be a slave to the illusion of control, raging at the world for not obeying you? Or will you let go, master yourself, and step onto the path of true power? The choice is yours. Secret 2: the death of the ego. Wisdom seekers, imagine a man standing in front of a mirror, staring at his own reflection. He is not looking at himself. No, he is looking at an illusion, an image of himself that he has crafted over years, shaped by pride, fear, and the hunger for recognition. He believes this image is real. He protects it, feeds it, worships it. And when the world dares to challenge this false image, he explodes with anger. This is the burden that weighs down most men. It is called the ego. The ego is the most fragile thing in the world, yet men spend their entire lives trying to defend it. A single insult can shatter it. A minor failure can wound it. A moment of embarrassment can send a man into rage, humiliation, or despair. And all of this happens because he believes this false self, the one he built in his mind, is who he truly is. But let me tell you the truth. The man you think you are is an illusion. He is not real. Look back on your life. Think of the times you were filled with pride, the times you swore you were right, the times you were convinced that others should admire or respect you. Now think of all the times you were wrong. Think of the times life humbled you, showed you your flaws, made you realize that you were not as great, as powerful, as perfect as you believed. Do you see it now? The ego is nothing but a mask, a brittle shell that cracks the moment reality pushes against it. Why do men get angry? Because someone wounded their ego. Someone made them feel small, insignificant, weak. And instead of accepting this truth and using it to grow, they lash out. They raise their voices. They threaten. They insult. They fight. Not because they are strong, but because they are terrified of being exposed. A man who is ruled by his ego is a slave to the opinions of others. He walks through life like a puppet, pulled in every direction by the words and actions of those around him. If someone praises him, he feels powerful. If someone criticizes him, he feels weak. He is a prisoner to the approval of the world. But there is another way. The ancient Stoics knew this. Seneca, one of the greatest minds of Rome, once said, "A great man is he who does not allow his dignity to depend on the judgment of others." Think about what that means. Most men go to war over words. They burn with fury at the slightest offense. They demand respect, recognition, status. But the man who has killed his ego does not need these things. He is untouchable. No insult can reach him. No failure can break him. No loss can shake him. He does not need the world to bow to him, because he has already conquered the only thing that matters, himself. Imagine being this man. Imagine walking through life with complete inner peace. Someone mocks you, it does not touch you. Someone tries to humiliate you, it does not reach you. Someone disrespects you, you remain unmoved because you do not need their respect to know your worth. This is not weakness. This is not indifference. This is power, the kind of power that only a few men in history have ever achieved. But to reach it, you must let your ego die. You must stop seeing yourself as a fragile image that needs to be defended. You must stop demanding that others validate you. You must stop believing that your worth is determined by how the world sees you. Do this and something incredible happens. Your anger disappears. Why? Because the root of all anger is wounded pride. The moment you let go of pride, you free yourself from anger forever. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, understood this deeply. He ruled over an empire where men insulted him, envied him, plotted against him. And yet, in his private writings, he reminded himself, if someone is mistaken, instruct him kindly and show him his error. But if you cannot do this, remember, your mind is your own. Stay at peace. Think about that. This was a man who held the power of life and death over millions. He could have destroyed his enemies, silenced those who disrespected him, and yet he chose peace. He chose to rule himself instead of ruling others. And now, wisdom seekers, the question falls upon you. Will you continue to be ruled by your ego, rising in anger every time someone threatens the illusion you have built? Or will you kill your ego, let go of pride, and walk the path of true strength, the strength that no insult, no failure, no humiliation can shake? This is the choice before you, and only you can make it. Secret 3. The fire that feeds on everything. Wisdom seekers, imagine a man standing in the middle of a great storm. The winds howl around him, the rain slashes his skin, the sky roars with fury. But this man does not run. He does not cower. He does not fight against the storm or curse the heavens. He stands still, calm, unmoving, because he understands something that other men do not. He knows that resistance is suffering. Most men live their lives in a state of war, not against enemies, not against nature, but against reality itself. They rage when things do not go their way. They curse their misfortunes. They fight against fate as if their anger could somehow rewrite the course of events. But the truth is this: anger does not change what has already happened. It does not fix the past. It does not bend the universe to your will. It only consumes you. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor-philosopher, understood this with absolute clarity. In his writings, he left behind a simple but devastating truth. What stands in the way becomes the way. What does this mean? It means that life will not spare you. It will bring you hardship, betrayal, pain, and injustice. It will throw obstacles in your path. And most men, when faced with these obstacles, waste their strength in rage. They blame the world, they blame others, they scream at the sky like wild beasts trapped in a cage of their own making. But the wise man sees things differently. He does not curse the obstacle. He does not waste his breath complaining. He does not rage against fate. Instead, he uses the obstacle. He bends it to his will. He turns every setback into strength, every insult into wisdom, every hardship into fuel for his fire. This is the secret that separates the great men of history from the weak. Think of the greatest warriors, the greatest leaders, the greatest thinkers. Were their lives free of pain? Were they never betrayed, never tested, never challenged? No. In fact, they endured more suffering than ordinary men. The difference is that they did not see suffering as an enemy. They saw it as the path itself. Seneca, the Roman statesman and philosopher, once wrote, "A fire turns everything into fuel." That is the mindset of an unbreakable man. Imagine yourself as this fire. Every hardship that life throws at you, every insult, every disappointment, it does not break you. It feeds you, it strengthens you. You absorb it, you transform it, you grow from it. The things that would make an ordinary man bitter, weak, and resentful only make you sharper, stronger, more powerful. Tell me, wisdom seekers, what is the alternative? Look at the men who let anger rule them. Do they become stronger? Does their rage make them more powerful? No. It consumes them. It makes them weak. It blinds them. It turns them into slaves of their own emotions. They think they are fighting against the world, but in reality they are only fighting against themselves. But you are not like other men. You are here because you seek mastery. You are here because you want control, not over others, not over fate, but over yourself. And this is the truth you must understand. Nothing that happens to you has the power to harm you. Only your reaction matters. Think about that for a moment. A man insults you. Does his insult have power on its own? No. It only has power if you allow it to wound you. A failure humbles you. Does the failure define you? No. It only defines you if you let it. A betrayal stings you. Does the betrayal make you weaker? No. It only weakens you if you let it. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man of his time, reminded himself of this truth constantly. He wrote, "You have been given power over your mind, nothing else. Realize this and you will find strength." Strength does not come from avoiding hardship. Strength does not come from demanding that life be fair. Strength comes from using everything that happens to you as fuel. This is why the wisest men of history did not allow anger to rule them, because they understood that anger is resistance to what already is. But when you drop resistance, when you embrace every hardship, every failure, every insult as part of the path, anger disappears. And in its place, something far greater takes root. Peace, not the fragile peace of a man who has never been tested, not the temporary peace of a man who hides from struggle, but the unshakable peace of a man who has faced every storm, every challenge, every pain, and remains standing. A man who does not break, but grows stronger with every blow life lands upon him. This is the choice before you. Will you resist reality, waste your strength in rage, and remain a prisoner of your own mind? Or will you become the fire that feeds on everything, using every obstacle, every hardship, every injustice as the very fuel that will propel you forward? The answer is yours to give. Secret 4. The man who owns nothing cannot be robbed. Wisdom seekers. Imagine a man walking through a vast marketplace. Around him, merchants shout, gold exchanges hands, and men scramble to buy, to sell, to own. Some are consumed with greed, their eyes locked onto treasures they do not yet possess. Others cling to their wealth with trembling hands, terrified of losing what they have worked for. There is tension in the air, a silent war between those who seek to gain and those who fight to protect. But in the middle of this chaos, there stands a man unlike the rest. He owns nothing. He desires nothing. And because of this, he walks without fear, without anxiety, without anger. No thief can rob him, no loss can break him, no failure can shake him, because he has already given up everything in his heart. This man is truly free. Most men live in chains, though they do not see them. They are bound to their possessions, their titles, their reputations. They believe that these things define them, that their worth is measured by what they own, what they achieve, what others think of them. And because of this belief, they live in a constant state of fear. Fear of losing what they have, fear of failure, fear of humiliation. And where there is fear, there's always anger. A man who fears losing his wealth rages at thieves. A man who fears losing his reputation burns with fury at insults. A man who fears losing control lashes out when the world does not obey him. Anger is always the child of attachment. But here's the truth that the greatest minds of history have understood. You own nothing. Nothing in this world is truly yours. Not your wealth, not your power, not even your body. Everything you have can be taken from you in an instant. You could wake up tomorrow and lose everything. And if that thought fills you with dread, then you have already lost. Because you are not a free man, you are a slave to what you think you own. Epictetus, the slave who became a philosopher, understood this better than most. He was born into bondage, owned by another man, denied the freedoms that others took for granted, and yet he was more free than the emperors of Rome. Why? Because he knew that the only thing a man truly owns is his mind. If you wish to be free, then desire nothing that is not your own, he said. And what is truly your own? Only your thoughts, your choices, your character. Think about that. If you no longer saw anything as yours, not your money, not your status, not even your pride, then what could the world take from you? What power would any man have over you? You would become untouchable. Most men do not understand this. They measure their success by their possessions, by their achievements, by the respect they command. But those things are fragile. A single misfortune can strip them away. And when that happens, the man who built his identity on these things collapses into rage, despair, or bitterness. But the man who has already let go, he remains unshaken. Seneca, the Roman statesman, was one of the wealthiest men of his time. He had power, influence, luxury. But he knew that none of it was truly his. "We are but tenants in this world," he wrote. "Everything we have is borrowed, and it may be reclaimed at any moment." And so when Emperor Nero, his own pupil, turned against him and stripped him of his wealth, Seneca did not fight, he did not beg, he did not rage against fate, he simply accepted it, as if nothing had been taken from him. Because in truth, nothing had. This is the power of detachment. This is the secret to unshakable peace. A man who owns nothing in his heart cannot be robbed. A man who has released all attachment cannot be angered. He may lose his fortune, but he does not lose himself. He may lose his reputation, but he does not lose his mind. He may lose everything he has built, but he does not lose his peace. Now ask yourself, what are you afraid to lose? What is the thing that, if taken from you, would fill you with rage? Is it your wealth, your status, your pride? Whatever it is, that thing owns you. It is a chain around your neck, pulling you in directions you cannot control. But you have the power to break it. Let go. Stop seeing anything as yours. Stop believing that you are entitled to anything. Stop thinking that your worth is tied to what you own, what you achieve, what others think of you. The moment you do this, you will taste something that few men ever experience: absolute freedom. This is why the greatest warriors, the greatest leaders, the greatest thinkers of history were not ruled by anger, because they had already accepted that nothing was theirs to begin with. Marcus Aurelius ruled over an empire, yet he reminded himself daily that he was only a man, that all things were temporary, that even the greatest kings and generals before him had been reduced to dust. And so, when people insulted him, when men betrayed him, when fate tested him, he did not break, he did not rage. He remained calm, because he understood the truth. Nothing was ever his to lose. And now, wisdom seekers, you must ask yourself, will you continue to be a prisoner of the things you think you own? Or will you release yourself from these chains and walk the path of true power, the power of a man who cannot be robbed, cannot be humiliated, cannot be broken? The answer is yours to give. Secret 5. The man who controls his mind controls the world. Wisdom seekers, close your eyes for a moment and imagine a man trapped in a prison cell. The walls are thick stone, the door is locked with iron bars, and the only light comes from a small window far beyond his reach. The world outside moves on without him. His power, his wealth, his freedom, Everything has been taken away. But now imagine something strange. This man sits in perfect peace. He is not afraid. He is not angry. He does not curse his fate or cry out for justice. Instead, he smiles, because he knows something that others do not. No one can imprison the man who has mastered his own mind. This is the greatest secret of all. Most men believe that their emotions are controlled by the outside world. They believe that happiness comes from success, that anger comes from injustice, that peace comes when the world treats them kindly. And so, they spend their lives chasing control over wealth, over reputation, over the actions of others, over everything except the one thing that actually matters: their own minds. The truth is simple. The world cannot control you unless you allow it to. A man insults you. Does that force you to feel rage? A failure humbles you. Does that force you to feel shame? A betrayal wounds you. Does that force you to feel hatred? No. These reactions are not caused by the event itself. They are caused by your mind's interpretation of the event. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, understood this truth. "If you are distressed by anything," he wrote, "it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your judgment about it, and you have the power to change that judgment at any moment." Think about that for a moment. The world does not anger you. You anger yourself. The world does not hurt you. You hurt yourself. The world does not control you. You surrender control. But why? Because most men live as slaves to their own minds. They do not choose their emotions. They do not shape their thoughts. They simply react. Like wild animals, they are led by instinct, by impulse, by habit. Something happens and they feel without ever stopping to question why. But the wise man is different. He understands that his mind is his kingdom. And like any kingdom, it can either be ruled with strength or left in chaos. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "A man is as wretched as he has convinced himself to be." Think about that. Two men experience the same hardship. One curses his fate, the other sees an opportunity to grow. Two men are insulted. One burns with rage, the other laughs and walks away. Two men fail at their goals. One falls into despair, the other stands back up stronger than before. The difference between them is not what happens. The difference is how they choose to think. This is the power that few men ever realize they have. You have been given the ability to shape your own mind. You have the power to decide whether an insult wounds you or passes through you like the wind. You have the power to decide whether failure breaks you or strengthens you. You have the power to decide whether hardship fills you with anger or makes you wiser, calmer, untouchable. But only if you take control. Most men will never do this. They will go through life blaming the world, blaming others, blaming fate. They will waste their energy raging at things beyond their control while neglecting the one thing that has always been within their control: their own perception, their own mind, their own choices. But you are not most men. You are here because you seek mastery, and mastery begins within. This is why the greatest men of history did not allow anger to rule them. They understood that the moment you allow something outside of you to dictate your emotions, you have surrendered your power. You have become a puppet, controlled by the actions of others, the randomness of life, the cruelty of fate. But when you take control of your mind, something incredible happens. You become unshakable. A storm rages around you, but inside there is only calm. A man spits insults at you, but inside there is only peace. A failure sets you back, but inside there is only determination. The world can no longer touch you because you decide how you experience it. Epictetus, the slave-turned-philosopher, understood this better than anyone. He was beaten, humiliated, stripped of all freedom, and yet he remained untouchable. Why? Because his mind was his own. "You may chain my body," he said, "but my mind is beyond your reach." This is the ultimate power, the power to decide how you feel, the power to choose peace over anger, strength over weakness, wisdom over impulse, the power to walk through the world as a man who is in control, not of others, not of fate, but of himself. And now, wisdom seekers, you must ask yourself, who truly rules your mind? Are you its master or its slave? Do you shape your emotions or do they shape you? Do you control your anger or does your anger control you? The answer to these questions will decide your fate. Because in the end, a man who cannot control his mind controls nothing at all. But a man who has mastered his mind, He controls the world. Secret 6. The man who accepts everything cannot be shaken. Wisdom seekers. Imagine for a moment that you are standing on the shore of a vast and violent sea. The waves rise like mountains, crashing with terrible force. The wind howls, the sky darkens, and the storm threatens to consume everything in its path. A lesser man would tremble. He would run. He would curse the sea for its rage, for its power, for its indifference. But now imagine another man. He does not fight the storm. He does not curse the waves. He simply stands, unmoved, as the winds tear at his body, as the water rises around him. He does not resist. He does not struggle. He accepts, and because he accepts, he remains unshaken. This is the final secret. Most men live their entire lives fighting against reality. They resist what is, clinging to what they think should be. They are like a man standing in the rain, shaking his fists at the sky, demanding that the storm stop simply because he does not want to get wet. And when the storm does not listen, when life does not bend to their will, they rage. They feel cheated. They drown in their own anger. But tell me, wisdom seekers, what has this anger ever changed? Did it stop the rain? Did it calm the storm? Did it alter fate? No. It only consumed them. This is the great illusion of the weak. They believe that if they fight against what is, they can somehow change it. But the world does not bend to anger. The universe does not obey your emotions. No amount of rage has ever made the past different. No amount of fury has ever reversed what has already happened. And yet, most men spend their entire lives locked in battle with the unchangeable. They curse their misfortunes. They rage at injustice. They fight against their own past, their own fate, their own reality. But the more they fight, the more they suffer. This is why the strongest men in history did not resist life. They accepted it. Not with weakness, not with surrender, but with absolute clarity. They saw things as they truly were, not as they wished them to be. They understood that their power did not lie in changing the world. It lay in accepting it completely and choosing their response with wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who ruled over the vast Roman Empire, wrote these words in his personal journal. The universe is change. Our task is not to resist it, but to embrace it. Think about that. Life is not something you control. The people around you will betray you, insult you, disappoint you. The world will throw obstacles in your path. Fate will take things from you that you never thought you could live without. None of this is in your hands. But what is in your hands is how you respond. You have two choices. You can resist. You can fight against the inevitable. You can spend your days drowning in rage, refusing to accept reality as it is. And in the end, you will only bring yourself misery, because no man has ever won a war against the truth. Or you can accept. You can see life for what it is, without illusion, without demand. You can drop the need for control, the need for the world to be a certain way. You can let go of the childish belief that life should always be fair, that others should always be kind, that fate should always be merciful. And when you do this, when you truly accept everything as it is, anger disappears. Why? Because anger is resistance. It is the refusal to accept reality. But when you accept, when you surrender to the truth of what is, there is nothing left to resist, nothing left to fight. And in this space where anger once ruled, something else takes its place. Power. Not the power of control, not the power of force, but the power of absolute freedom. A man who resists is always a slave. He is a slave to his own expectations, a slave to his own emotions, a slave to a world that will never be what he wants it to be. But a man who accepts is unbreakable, because nothing can be taken from him. He has already let go. Epictetus, who was born a slave and yet became one of the greatest philosophers of all time, understood this better than anyone. He had no freedom, no wealth, no power. And yet, he was more free than the men who owned him. Because while they were enslaved by their own anger, their own desires, their own resistance, he had let go of it all. He said, "Do not demand that things happen as you wish. Accept them as they are, and you will find peace." This is not weakness. This is the greatest strength a man can possess, because the man who accepts everything cannot be shaken. Insult him, and he does not react, because he does not demand that others respect him. Betray him, and he does not rage, because he does not expect loyalty from a world that is full of self-interest. Strike him down, take everything from him, and he does not despair, because he has already accepted that nothing was ever his to keep. This is the path to invincibility. Because tell me, wisdom seekers, what can you do to a man who demands nothing from the world? How do you make him angry when he expects nothing from others? How do you make him suffer when he has already accepted all possible outcomes? How do you defeat a man who has already surrendered to the truth? You cannot. He is beyond your reach. He is untouchable. He is free. And now, wisdom seekers, I ask you this. Will you continue fighting against life, resisting what is, demanding that the world bend to your will? Or will you take the path of true power, the path of complete acceptance, of absolute clarity, of inner peace that no force in the universe can shake? The choice is yours. But understand this. Until you accept everything as it is, you will never know what it means to be free. And until you are free, you will never know what it means to be truly strong.